with great pleasure, actually, that I invite Dr. Michael Wesch to the TEDx KC stage.
All right. So as I was preparing this, talk for what the world needs now, I was reminded of this old Aztec story, and the story starts off with the world on fire, and it seems like such an apt metaphor for our times, because the world's on fire and all the animals are running away, all hope is lost, and we have this similar situation now. We have a hunger crisis, an economic crisis, an energy crisis. We have half the world living on less than $2 a day. We have islands of trash growing in our oceans, and we have, this has to be a message to our youth and to all of us that we cannot live the next 100 years the way that we've lived the past 100 years. And so if you think about this world on fire metaphor, and you think about, okay, we really need to get our youth ready for this, how do you think we're doing this? I'll just give you a picture here. This is my class at Kansas State University. This is where most of the preparation of our youth is happening, and certainly in the most serious types of preparation that are happening. And you can see they're not really engaged. And there's actually like a real test you can do for this to find out just how engaged they are and how much they are engaging in these really important questions. And that is just to pay attention to the questions that they're asking. A good question is something that leads people on a quest. And if you pay attention to the questions that students are asking in this environment, they turn out to be questions like this. How many points is this worth? How long does this paper need to be? What do we need to know for this test? I mean, these are like the worst types of questions around. And it's not that this group is lazy and disengaged. I mean, this is the same group here. I don't know if you see the difference. So something's gone wrong here. I've actually done surveys with the students. One day we just set up a camera and we just panned it around and students could sort of give confessions and that kind of thing. And we got things like this. I buy $100 textbooks that I never open. My neighbor paid for class but never comes. We did a survey and we found that across the university they were completing 49% of the readings that were assigned to them. But even worse, they were finding only 26% relevant to their life, which is like a 74% failure rate on our part. Goes on, I bring my laptop to class when I'm not working on class stuff. And this was nicely illustrated in the fact that her IM actually popped up just as she was presenting this. I Facebooked through most of my classes. And these last two actually present something else to us, a new sort of disruption in the classroom. And that is that there is something in the air. There's literally something in the air. It's in the air all around us, and most of us can access it from at least one device that's on us right now, if not multiple devices. Our students are the same way. And what's in the air is nearly the entire body of human knowledge. It's the digital artifacts of about 2 billion people on the planet connecting and sharing and collaborating. And if you could picture it, it might look something like this. It's like the new media landscape. But this is really just the beginning, because we're headed towards ubiquitous computing, ubiquitous communication, ubiquitous information on unlimited speed about everything, everywhere, from anywhere, on all kinds of devices. And this makes it ridiculously easy to connect, organize, share, collect, collaborate, and publish. And it makes exams like this seem really silly and out of place. This is a multiple choice Scantron exam for those of you who've never seen one. So this is this is way out of place here. I'm going to make the basic argument today that we need to move our students from simply being knowledgeable, that is knowing a bunch of stuff, which is basically what we're trying to do when we line them up in these big lecture halls and dump information on them. And we need to move them to being knowledge-able, that is able to find, sort, analyze, ultimately criticize, and even create new information and knowledge. All right, and so this is what my classroom looks like. And I want you just to think about, what's the message of the walls? So it's not about what I'm saying up at the front. The walls are saying something too. So what are these walls saying? And if you think about this old Dewey point, John Dewey used to say that students learn what they do. So if students learn what they do, what are they learning sitting here? It's not about just what I'm saying, but it's also the message of just sitting there. And the message is that the information is up at the front of the room with the authority, that they should follow along. And the message of this room is pretty clear, that you should bow to the authority and follow, follow, follow. So of course walls and desks cannot talk, students can. So what we did was we just created a Google document. We called it A Vision of Students Today. I just started the first line, what is it like being a student today? I invited all my students to join in. So we had 200 collaborators on this. And we just started writing about what is it like being a student today. And it's basically a critique of higher education generated by all these 200 students. So some of this, we did some surveys as well that we developed along with this. And then the video looks something like this we produced. And you've already seen some of the images at the beginning of this talk. So you've seen a lot of this already, so I'm going to skip the rest of that. But here's another interesting little side story. Just like a month after we produced this, it had raced to almost 3 million views. It had been translated into Spanish, Italian, Greek, French, and Arabic. It was on ABC News. I mean, it was like this weird example of just how ridiculously easy it is to connect, organize, share, collect, collaborate, and publish. And yet at the same time, I think this is a little misleading because it's technologically ridiculously easy to do these things, but it's actually really hard to do these things, to really connect with people, to really collaborate, to really publish something of worth. Those are actually, I think, really hard things to do. And they're not learning to do those things in this kind of environment. So if we're going to move our students from being knowledgeable to being knowledge-able, we're going to have to recognize that knowledgeability is a practice. It's not a list of things that you can just tell somebody, this is what you need to do to be knowledge-able. It's a hard thing to do. It takes practice. And the 3 things that I try to do in my classroom to make this happen, number 1 is you try to embrace real problems, problems that I don't know the answer to. I don't stand up and pretend I know the answers to the world on fire questions that we have. We do it with students, so we bring all of them together to collaborate to solve these real-world problems. And we do it harnessing and leveraging the relevant tools whenever we can. And in this way, we connect, organize, share, collect, collaborate, and publish together. And ultimately, if we're going to solve this crisis, we ultimately have to recognize that we have to convince our students to move beyond just seeking meaning and help them realize that meaning is not something you find, but it's ultimately something you create. You create yourself, you create the world. And ultimately, we need to move them beyond the question of what do we need to know for this test and move them to this question of what do we need to know for this test, the test of our lives. And if I could return back to that old Aztec story to finish off. So the Aztecs had this idea that the world is on fire, all hope is lost, and so on. Well, it turns out all hope isn't lost. As all these animals are fleeing this fire that threatens to engulf the entire world, all the animals are fleeing and the birds are up overhead fleeing, and an eagle looks back and he can see this tiny little bird back by this little stream near the fire, and the bird is just hopping up to the stream, filling its beak with water, and then sort of fluttering over the fire and dropping a single drop of water over the fire. And the eagle comes racing back and says, "You're crazy, like, you're going to die, what are you doing?" And the little bird says, "The best I can." And the eagle gets really inspired by this and starts swooping down and picking up water in his beak and flying back over. And some other birds see this, and the animals see this, and pretty soon the earth starts to shake as the animals start to flow back to the fire. And they start digging a fire line, and the sky becomes so thick with birds that you can't see the sun, and the water falls like rain from their beaks. And this is why we can sit here today and still talk about the little bird that saved the world. Thanks.